Good evening, and I'll open the steering committee meeting. First on our agenda for the approval and reading of the minutes, I call on Commissioner Robert Stevens.
Mr. Chairman, I read those minutes, and I would move that we approve them as mailed.
Have a motion, is there a second? Second. Have a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. First on our agenda is to fill vacancies on the Agricultural Advisory Board. This will be one farm woman, one farmer, and 2 county commissioners. Do have a letter from Mr. Anthony Tuggle, who is the county director, which states 4 of the 7 members who currently serve on the Rutherford County Agricultural Committee have terms which expire at the end of this calendar year. Those with expiring terms are Ms. Franchelle Whitworth, Will Jordan, Robert P., and Donald Blankenship. Will Jordan, Robert P., and Donald Blankenship are eligible for reappointments. They have been strong supporters and have worked diligently to assist the extension staff in their efforts to provide quality educational programs for Rutherford County residents. I hope their desires to serve another 2-year term, which will run from January 2016 through December 2017. I would most definitely support a recommendation for their reappointment by the steering committee as well as their approval by the county commission. So let's go ahead and look at the farm woman. I think that we have one applicant, Mrs. Phyllis Ferguson. We would like to invite all the applicants, if they're interested, to make a statement to the committee. If Ms. Phyllis Ferguson is in the audience. Okay, do we have a motion on our farm woman?
Chairman, I move that Ms. Ferguson be appointed by acclamation.
Second. All in favor by appointment by acclamation, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. The farmer, I think that we have one applicant, Mr. Donald Blankenship. Is Mr. Blankenship in the audience? I'm sorry, we have 2 applicants, Mr. Colin Miller and Mr. Donald Blankenship. Mr. Mayor? Well, those are the commissioners. Okay. Is Mr. Donald Blankenship in the audience? Okay, is Mr. Colin Miller in the audience? Mr. Miller, would you like to make a address the committee?
My name is Colin Miller. I own and operate a small cattle calf operation in the community of Christiana. I have served 6 years on the Rutherford County Young Farmers and Rangers Committee, 1 year as vice chairman, and 3 years as president. I've currently been reelected as president this year, and I served 3.5 years on the Rutherford County Farm Bureau Operation. I currently attend MTSU, major in agribusiness, minor in political science. I would greatly appreciate the appointment to the Agriculture Advisory Board. I think I can give a young perspective on agriculture and hopefully lead a new generation of young farmers into the future. It's coming to a point where we're having to step up, and there's less and less young farmers in Tennessee and across the nation that are willing to step up and participate in such a good program and a good lifestyle. And I would like the opportunity to voice that young opinion and serve the community of Rutherford County.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there a motion?
Chairman, we had an agriculture committee meeting this afternoon, and I was able to speak to Donald for a few minutes. And Donald voiced to me that he actually enjoyed serving on the committee and actually helped us out where we needed a person at that time. But it's a hardship for him to meet at that 5:15, especially in the summer when he's out baling hay and he doesn't get started till about 3 and then working till midnight. So he said that, you know, if there was another applicant that wanted to fill that position, he would be willing to cede that. So having said that, I'll make a motion for, is it Colin? to be appointed.
There's a motion for Mr. Miller. Is there any other nominations? Okay, all in favor for Mr. Collins Millers, please say, is there I'm sorry, let me ask for a second, please. Commissioner Johnson. All in favor for Mr. Miller, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Mr. Miller, we appreciate your interest in county government and your willingness to serve. Your name will be submitted to the full commission Thursday night at 6 p.m. Thank you. And now for our two county commissioners, Commissioner Will Jordan and Commissioner Robert P. Do we need to hear a statement or? Okay, I'll take a motion. Is there a second? Second. Commissioner Johnson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any more ayes? Motion passes. Next on our agenda is to fill 2 vacancies on the Community Care Board. We have two nominations or 2 applicants, Mrs. Kay Jernigan and Mr. Doug Brodery. Are any of those people in the audience? Ms. Jernigan? Would you like to address the committee? Okay.
I've enjoyed my opportunity to serve the residents and employees on the Community Care Board since 2003, and I would appreciate the opportunity to continue to serve those residents and those employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Mr. Brodery in the audience? Would you like to make a statement, please?
My name is Doug Bodery. I'm a CPA, and I used to be an auditor with Comptroller's Office in Arkansas County. Now I currently am with the University of Tennessee County Technical Assistance Service as a finance consultant. And some folks asked me if I was interested in this board. I put my name in it. It's very interested in a good way to do service.
Thank you, very well said. Is there a motion? Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Ms. Jernigan and Ms. Brodery, your name will be submitted to the full county commission this Thursday night at 6 p.m. Thank you so much. Next, we need to fill a county general employee vacancy on the insurance committee. We actually have 3 applicants, Mr. Brian Gaither, Mrs. Sante Sherrill, and Mrs. Diane Chapman. Is Mr. Gaither in the audience by chance? Would you like to address the committee, please?
My name is Brian Gaither, paramedic with the Hannon Service. I've been with the county for 19 years. I was here last month for an open position on the insurance committee. Be very interested to serve that committee, and I appreciate your support.
Are there any questions for Mr. Gaither from the committee? Thank you, Mr. Gaither. Mrs. Shantae Sherrill.
My name is Shantae Sherrill. I've been with the county for about 13 years now. I was secretary for the Beer Board. I worked at the county clerk's office. And now I'm in the planning and engineering department. I'm an administrative assistant for Easy Day. And I just appreciate the opportunity to be on to serve on the insurance committee.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much. And Mrs. Diane Chapman? Okay. Is there a motion? Second? All in favor, please say aye. Becky, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Johnson,
We're voting for 1. Excuse me, I'm sorry, we're voting for 2. Let's see. I'm sorry, just 1. Yes, sir. Vote for 3 if you want to. Bill?
Wait a minute. Diane Chapman. Chapman.
Commissioner P,
Well,
Sherrill.
Mrs. Sherrill.
Ms. Sherrill with 3.
Ms. Sherrill, your name will be submitted to the full county commission this Thursday evening at 6 o'clock. We do appreciate Mr. Gaither and Mrs. Chapman for their interest. Next, we have to fill 2 vacancies on the Correctional Work Center Board. And we have 2 applicants, Mr. Bob Asbury and Mrs. Frances Mosby. Mr. Asbury, would you like to address the committee?
No, thank you.
Thank you. I hope our legislators can be that quick. Mrs. Frances Mosby.
Yes, thank you so very much. I've been on this will be my 7th term. My husband was there, Johnny Mosby, for 10 years, and I really like being on the board and working with the mayor and the superintendent, Mr. Slade. I'd like to be considered again.
Is there a motion? Motion to approve by acclamation. Is there a second? We have a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Mr. Asbury, Ms. Mosby, your name will be submitted to the full county commission this Thursday evening at 6 o'clock, and we really appreciate your interest. Fill 2 vacancies on the Public Building Authority. We also have 2 applications for that, Mr. Dow Smith and Mr. Leslie Smith, Jr. Is Mr. Dow Smith in the audience? Mr. Leslie Smith, Jr.? Well, they're very confident. But I would like to say that what the Public Building Authority has done in working with the county to help with our judicial building has been astronomical, and we really appreciate them. So is there a motion? Okay. Motion to approve by acclamation, seconded by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Announce a vacancy on the Limeball Library Board, a female from the Eagleville area. Announce 2 vacancies on the Conservation Board. Announce a vacancy on the Public Building Authority. And we have a request to increase the litigation tax from $10.35 to $14 for general sessions, judges, and salaries.
Ms. Nolan is here, and I think we would let her address your language, please.
Okay, thank you. From time to time, we analyze the revenues that we get from the litigation tax that funds the general salary. And after completing it, the rate is currently $10.35, and our analysis shows that it could go to $14.11, but I believe the clerk would prefer that we just have even dollars. So our recommendation is to change that litigation tax from $10.35 to $14.
Goes for the judges' salaries. Okay. Are there any questions from the committee to Ms. Nolan or the mayor?
Is that the maximum allowed?
The maximum is pretty much what it cost us to fund it. So, I mean, you can change it. You have the authority to change that. If by chance it goes down, what we collect, then we would have to reduce it, the amount that we collect.
Questions? Any discussion? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Commissioner Phillips, would this need to go to budget or?
Let's take it on the budget, just, so they'll be aware of what we're doing.
Okay, so that would be in your motion, to send it to budget. Okay. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say that I'm going to abstain from this vote because I practice in the general sessions courts, and I don't want anybody to accuse me of any kind of impropriety in voting on the judges' salaries.
Well, I would accuse you of that, so thank you. Okay, all in favor of this motion, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Okay, next is our discussion with our state legislators. We have 4 in attendance at this time, Senator Bill Ketchum, Senator Jim Tracy, Dr. Brian Terry, and Mrs. Dawn White. Thank you for attending. We will submit questions to you from the committee, and then at that time, we will ask any commissioners who may be in the audience to ask a question. So, but briefly, if you want to take about 3 to 5 minutes, maybe to introduce yourself, and maybe talk about what's upcoming events that may be important to Rutherford County. So let's go ahead and start with Mrs. White.
There we go. Alrighty, ladies first, I guess. I'm Dawn White. Thank y'all so much for having me tonight. I always love coming and discussing issues that will impact and face Rutherford County. I am in my 3rd year, 2nd term. I am District 37, which includes Murfreesboro, Walter Hill, Leanna, half of Smyrna, and Lake Forest and Laverne is my district, and I'm just pleased to be here tonight and to hear your concerns and maybe how we can work together to improve Rutherford County.
Dr. Terry?
Thank you guys for having me here tonight. State Representative Brian Terry, District 48. It's my 1st term. I serve on the Health, Sub, and Full committees, as well as Consumer and Human Resources. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. If you have any issues or anything, it's working in collaboration with our county is something that I think that behooves all constituents, and appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for asking us to come tonight. Glad to be here. Jim Tracy. I represent the 14th District, which includes parts of Rutherford County, Bedford County, Marshall County, Lincoln County, Metropolitan Lynchburg, Moore County. So glad to be here tonight. Look forward to your questions. A lot of challenges I know that y'all have at the county level, and we're going to have a lot of challenges at the state level this year. I'm on chairman of the Transportation Safety Committee, on the Commerce Committee, and also on the Education Committee. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Senator Ketchum?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the steering committee. Thank you for doing this every year. I think I look forward to this opportunity. I know when I get the phone call, we're getting close to opening session, so to come to the steering committee meeting means it's right around the corner for us to start. We do start back on January the 12th, and this is the 2nd year of our 2-year General Assembly, so there won't be a week or two like there is usually during the 1st year, so we'll, as soon as the gavel hits, we'll start right after we organize on the 12th and go right downstairs and start committee meetings. So it will go very fast. Last day of bill cutoff is on the 21st, I believe, of January. So all bills will have to be submitted by the 21st of January. I am Senator Bill Ketchum, 13th District, which used to be part of, I used to have Lincoln County, Murray County, Marshall County, and gave 2 of those to Jim, and got rid of Murray County, and my whole district, because we have grown so much, is now in Rutherford, and it still takes 2 senators, Jim and I, to represent Rutherford County. So my district goes from Laverne all the way to Rutherford Boulevard, and depends on what street it is, we split those votes. But again, thank you for the opportunity for us to come and address the steering committee, and because this is the way that we communicate, and we know what each other's thinking, and how we can go and represent you on a statewide basis. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Does the House member have a limit on how many bills they can submit?
Brian turned it off for me. Trying to shut up a politician, aren't you? 15 is the limit at the House. So therefore, it kind of restricts the Senate by them getting a sponsor and us asking them to be our sponsor.
No limit in the Senate?
No limit in the Senate because there's only 33 of us. So out of those limits of 15 on each of them, we still end up carrying 75 to 80 bills, sometimes 100, depends on how busy it is. But hopefully this will be a light year this year.
I will start out with the first question. This deals with the 10th Amendment to the Constitution. I think obvious that The founders intended for the federal government to be small, be limited in powers, with a vast amount of powers and authority be given to the sovereign states, because the states were more closer to the people, and the states could best represent the interests of the people and how they're governed. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Whether it be the administration, Congress, federal judges, or an unelected bureaucracy that appears to answer to no one, continues to rob our states of their constitutional authority. So my question is there anything that the General Assembly can do with the governor to help win back some rights or limit what rights are being taken from us? I've heard comments about a convention of the states, but if anyone could address something like that.
Well, the Convention of States, there is a movement going on right now for the Convention of States, and it would take 32 states to do that and to be ratified by 38 states. That movement is gathering steam, getting more and more states to pass legislation. We have already passed that in the House. It's up, in the Senate, it's up to the House to pass that this year. That was Senator Bell's bill. But as late as last week and even today, I've been on the phone conference calls since last Friday. Thomas More, law firm out of Michigan, has volunteered to represent the state of Tennessee, which is one of about 8 or 9 Wilson Fish states who, those Wilson Fish states are the only ones that can bring a lawsuit against the federal government concerning the refugee resettlement. And it's not really focused on the refugee resettlement, but more about states' rights. And if they feel fairly confident, but the governor's got to pull the trigger. I think there's petitions being signed right now. Representative Terry Lynn Weaver is getting signatures to put pressure on the governor. If the governor will step up and lead, then this law firm will take the lawsuit for free. The state doesn't have to pay anything, and then representing us by saying, here's what it's costing the state taxpayers in Tennessee, from TANF funds to TennCare Medicaid funds for those refugees who come into our state, and some qualify, some do not for TennCare. The TANF, TennCare, local housing, many times they'll come in, like Catholic Charities is one of about 4 different agencies that have the contract with the State Department when those refugees come in and they're placed in local government, and that burden, like Senator Tracy had down in Bedford County, many of the Somalians came in, they had to provide the public housing down in Cherville when those refugees were resettled there to work at the Tyson plant. So these are the issues that will be taken up. Over a course of many years, quietly, the State Department has continued to slide more and more of those cost, shifting it back to the states to where we have to pay for it, and we're paying for all of it right now. But nobody's been keeping a record, so it's hard to determine or delineate how much we're actually paying. ELL. From English language learners. I was in a conference in Arizona 2 weeks ago. Arizona, talking to a senator at lunch, Arizona is gone completely. They've done away with the ELL and gone completely with immersion. So they're teaching total immersion in their classrooms because the kids learn it quicker as opposed to stringing it out over years and years and having teachers trying to teach them, especially when, now in Arizona it's much easier because most of the languages there are all Spanish. But in our case, how many, Mayor, do we have? How many languages? 52, 54, I've heard. I know it's about 54 in Davidson County as well, different languages that are spoken. So how can you get that many teachers to try to teach language to those who come from Yugoslavia or some other state as a refugee? So those are issues we're all looking at, but I think that's ongoing right now, and you'll see within the next probably week to 10 days, you'll see the state taking some kind of action with this law firm out of Michigan.
Do you know how many other states are looking at participating in the Convention of the States?
Alabama, of course, Texas, they would have been the first ones to sign up, but they're not a Wilson fish state. Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, I think some of South Carolina possibly as well. But it's going to take somebody that's got some guts and willing to step up and say, yes, we'll be the plaintiff in that lawsuit.
Hopefully we can get some Yankee states too participate.
Can I follow up just really quick? I've heard that passing some of this type of legislation is just useless simply because if refugees come into one state, after a period of time, they can migrate and go anywhere they want to go. So are we just beating our head?
Well, from trying to bar refugee resettlement, yes, but I think the Thomas More Law Firm wants to approach it from a different angle from the 10th Amendment. And the AG opinion that came out a couple of weeks ago was very narrowly asked by the governor to give an opinion, and it was on the refugee resettlement, not on 10th Amendment, about stopping the federal government pushing things on the states to make them responsible for the cost, whether it be refugee resettlement or any other mandate that is coming from the federal government.
Yeah, and we had a hearing 2 weeks ago discussing this very issue. No, it was last week. And one of the things that we found out, which I knew, I passed the refugee capacity absorptive bill that we had 4 years ago. The federal government right now doesn't tell the governor, doesn't tell anyone at the state when they're going to bring the refugees in. Catholic Charities don't even know. They're the refugee resettlement organization that does it. So part of it is the 10th Amendment. You know, we just need to be notified so they can do that. And the bill that we passed 4 years ago, I'll tell you an interesting story. We passed it. We're one of the, I guess, only state that's passed any legislation like that. I sponsored it, and the State Department was so frustrated with our bill because it requires them to notify the local government if you're going to bring in refugees, the mayor, the superintendent of schools, the law enforcement, to let them know how many's coming so they can say, do we have the capacity to handle them or not? Because what happened in Bedford County, there was a large number that came in, and we didn't have the capacity to handle it. So that's where we're going at it on that 10th Amendment. It's about 10th Amendment.
Commissioner Phillips, do you have any other questions? Start with you.
No, I kind of brought this point up last year, and I just wanted to bring it up again. Most of us are animate about states' rights, and it seems to be that process is eroding to a degree, and I just want to challenge all of you as our local elected officials that counties have certain rights too. So be careful about passing legislation that affects us in a negative way and our ability to do certain things from a statewide perspective. So just know that we have issues from time to time. Passing legislation that affects the state as a whole, sometimes it might affect us. So we would like input when those things come before you guys.
Maybe we could have a convention of the counties.
Sorry?
Maybe we could have a convention of the counties. Commissioner P., do you have any questions?
Kind of have the same thoughts that the commissioner beside me just spoke, but one other thing that comes to mind just from recent news is Governor Haslam had mentioned doing away with the Board of Regents, or at least not having them over some of the colleges like MTSU and I guess USC is falling out of East Tennessee. Just curious, I'll say, Jim, you're on education, maybe, or, okay. Anyway, I'd like to hear y'all's opinion on that.
I talked to Dr. McPhee at graduation on Saturday, and of course he was very optimistic about the plan and very excited about it. I feel it's a good thing. You know, who better to represent the values of MTSU, the structure of MTSU, and the, you know, excitement in the community and atmosphere that MTSU holds than people from MTSU and graduated alumni, people of Rutherford County and the community. So I feel like it's a very good thing, and again, just like everything else, we'll see how it plays out, but it seems like it's going to be a positive thing for MTSU.
Yeah, and the way we haven't seen the details of the bill, but Commissioner P., the way it's designed now, each four-year institution in the Board of Regents, that would be MTSU, University of Memphis, Tennessee Tech, Tennessee State University, East Tennessee State, Austin Peay, they will all have their individual boards. The Board of Regents will still be over all the community colleges and over all the TCATs. So that's the way it's designed. Now, we haven't seen the inner workings of it. You know, we just got to make sure that they have a what I call a referee between the two, all the universities, which will be THEC and Tennessee Higher Education Commission. That's the plan right now. We haven't seen the details of it yet, so it should be a positive for these four-year institutions to have a board that's really interested in that. And that's about all we know right now. It will be legislation that'll have to be passed, though.
Make sure I understood you correctly, because I actually got two questions on that. One was, I'd read an article about this, and the person that wrote the article said that there would be cost involved in doing that. It would cost us something. Just curious about that. But the other thing, and maybe you alluded to it, is would there be a problem getting funding, say for MTSU, under their own board versus under the Board of Regents? I mean, that's what I kind of worry about.
It would be really the way it is now. THEC does that now. So MTSU, Tennessee Tech, and all the other universities, they sort of battle with THEC. THEC does the formula on how the money is distributed throughout the universities. So that won't change whether it's going to cost more money. We haven't seen that yet. I don't know. I can't tell you that yet. We won't know that till we see the legislation. The idea behind it, and other states have done this, is that each university will have their own board that's interested in that university, and then they would make the sale to the THEC, Tennessee Higher Education Commission, that they want to concentrate on whatever programs they are, and THEC will then disperse the funds. They're doing that now. It just all comes under the umbrella of Board of Regents.
Commissioner P., one thing I disagree with the governor on, when he briefed us before the press release came out a few weeks ago, he said that the governor would like to have the sole authority of appointing those board members from the University of Memphis to MTSU, et cetera. I disagree with that. Governors come and go. He's only going to be there for a few more years. I think it should be the governor and both speakers. Speaker of the House, Lieutenant Governor, Speaker of the Senate, should have that appointing authority, and they have a better feel from their respective caucuses as well as the governor, as opposed to making it political. As far as costing more money, I don't know why somebody said that, because I see it as costing less money, because I did make a comment and the governor kind of winked and grinned that we'll probably see a restructuring of TBR as it currently is, because it'll be focused, like Senator Tracy said, focused on the community colleges and TCATs. So I see less paid positions from that standpoint. All the board members from all the respective universities of four-year institutions will be volunteers who will be more in line of thinking for their university, for those people who write the checks, who are the alumni and can help formulate, and those boards will help create the curriculum and the expansion of the university. So I see it as being advantageous on this move. But then more emphasis will be placed on THEC to make sure that the University of Tennessee doesn't walk away with all the money, which it was created for back in the late 60s for that main purpose, and it kind of got out of control, and it was all politics. UT got most of the money. Of course, they do anyway. I think it'll be more even balanced with this new structure.
Thank you. One thing I also wanted to say to Senator Ketron is to tell you thank you for the efforts you put in on looking at mass transit last year, and want to ask all of y'all, please continue doing that. If there's any opportunities for us to get light rail or something like that, I think we need to pursue that.
We have a meeting set up. Senator Tracy, I think I don't know if you're coming tomorrow or not, but we do have a meeting with one of the premier consultants on P3 public-private partnerships, and I think that's the way we need to be looking. Basically, it comes down to two options. We have two options to look at CSX. If there's enough room there to put another light rail or on top of their current rail, and that's going to take force from the governor to put pressure on CSX because they've already denied us once. The only other option is to go with mass transit, to go with some type of monorail type system. I personally believe that buses I think that would be short-sighted to go with buses. I personally don't think that people are going to ride buses. There's not enough room between here and Nashville to widen I-24. Assistant Commissioner said realistically there's just not enough room. The cost, even if we were to do that, add one more lane to each side, one more lane on the on-ramps and off-ramps is about $2.6 billion versus a monorail type system would be about $2.1 billion. But if you get the private sector to invest into it and they see a way to make money, you could bond it over a 30-year period, and then just with the backing of the state, the only thing that we as citizens would have to put up would be the middle of the interstate or the side of the interstate, whichever way you put the mass transit, but we have to do something. So I'll be introducing a bill, working on the language that will open it up to where at least we can start working with Senator Tracy's guidance and expertise on his committee in transportation to where we'll start a study group. We can't continue to kick the can further down the road and wait. As projection, we're supposed to be at 600,000 in population in the next 10 years. We're close to 300,000 now. We are almost at that gridlock standpoint. So yes, we've got to do something. We're working on it.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for your dedication to representing Rutherford County and the whole state of Tennessee for everyone's welfare. I have got a couple of questions. One of them regarding education and the other is transportation. Have you all had any feedback from, I just read an article regarding the problem with substitute teachers regarding the per diem, is there anything in the mill?
You know, I don't know, but I'd say that will be considered. I'm like you. I think they're having problems all over the state of getting good qualified substitute teachers, I mean, for the amount of money that they're paying. So that may be discussed. I have a feeling that there'll be some discussion there somehow. I mean, that's not in the BEP formula. I don't know how we would work it, but there's too much discussion about it across the state, not just in Rutherford County. I think all the counties that I know about, when you talk to superintendents, they're having a hard time getting good qualified substitute teachers. So I'd say that will be in the discussion.
The other question is regarding transportation, your transportation chairman, and your letter to the mayor and the Rutherford Board of County Commissioners on the 24th regarding $250 million and then the priority of the Epps Mill Interchange Road. We have the privilege of having 973.2 miles of county roads, and we have some of the best roads in the state, and we appreciate all your help. Could you give us an update on this, Senator?
Yeah, you know, I had a meeting today at lunch, and that was the whole topic was transportation and talking about mass transit like Commissioner P, or you talk about where we are at transportation. I've traveled the state in the last 2 months discussing it from Memphis to Kingsport, and it's a big concern all the way across. First of all, you brought up, it's actually $260 million that from 2002 to 2008, the prior administration took money out of the transportation fund up to $280 million. We have paid back about $20 million of it. I've asked the governor to replenish that money into the transportation fund. Just so I know your next question is going to go, is the county going to get some of that money back? Well, I asked that question last week, and because I was ready to distribute the money as we do throughout the state through cities and counties. That money came strictly, from what I was told, through TDOT. The deputy commissioner said it came right out of TDOT money. It didn't come out of the county or city money. So I think we got a real good shot at getting that money back. Now, I will tell you that's a short-term fix. I mean, I asked Deputy Commissioner Paul Diggs last week, I said, how long would it take you to spend that $260 million? He said, if you got it to me today, I'd have it spent by December 31st. You know, we've got that many needs. And right here in Rutherford County, you've got Highway 99, you got Jefferson Pike, you got Epps Mill out that way. I mean, you could name Thompson Lane, you could go down through, and I hear from people quite often about those different projects. But Commissioner Johnson, thanks for the question. I want to bring up one thing I think that is good for people to know. The Tennessee gas tax, the citizens in Tennessee pay 21.4 cents per gallon on gas. They pay 18.4 cents on diesel. The county receives, out of that 21.4 cents, the county receives 5.44 cents. The city receives 2.74 cents of the gasoline tax. So that's how we distribute our money, and really we're the envy across the country. We have no debt on our roads. We're one of 5 states in the country that has no debt. So we're debt free. We pay as we go. The average citizen, now this, I want y'all to sit back and listen to this. When I tell people when I was going across the state, the average citizen in Tennessee, if they travel 15,000 miles a year, they pay a grand total of $160 a year in gasoline taxes. And those gasoline taxes pay for state roads, city roads, county roads. $160 a year. I pay more than that on my cell phone every month. You know, so that gives you, you know, I think the citizens are getting a very good buy for what we are. But we are at a crossroads in Tennessee. Transportation, Senator Ketchum pointed out, we'll be meeting tomorrow about that. There's several issues we're going to have to deal with. One of the good things, and Mayor Burgess is involved in this, is a regional approach. Now, after what happened in Nashville last year with the AMP, they've decided to go back and say they need to come back and do a regional approach. Really, all the donut counties around Nashville, Rutherford County being one of those counties, with all the influx of people when you're traveling, if like we're traveling to Nashville quite a bit, the traffic is tremendous. So we've got to figure out long-term plan. I think we're going to spend the next year coming up with a plan. We got to deal with liquid natural gas, compressed liquid natural gas, propane, hydrogen. Those are all things for the future. And electric cars. Right now we're not getting any revenue on electric cars. So I could spend all night talking about transportation. Last thing, 91% of the money that comes into the state, TDOT, goes right back into roads and bridges, 91%. Can't say for what it is on federal. Federal sends some of their money down for greenways and sidewalks. We don't do that. That's federal money.
One other comment that I'd like to make is I think a lot of the people in the county are not aware that there's only 1 cent of the property tax goes to the roads and bridges for Rutherford County. And I read somewhere that I think, Mayor, you may have heard this too. I'm sure you have. Basically, about 21 more people are coming into the county every day, and I think the projection is about 30,000 more people in the next 4 years. That's 30,000 more people, okay, and everybody's going to bring at least 1.5 cars, so that's 45,000 more, and I think we're up to well over 200,000 registered vehicles in the county, and I think that the county does an extremely good job with the monies that we have to maintain the roads and bridges and everything. So, but you can't stop progress. It's
you know, Commissioner, you know with this because you and I have talked about roads when you were on the road board and all that. But right now, the big challenge for the counties is not only repaving their roads. I'll give you one more statistic. 10 years ago, in 2005, to repave a road in the county, it cost about $35,000 per mile. Cost over $100,000 per mile today, 10 years later. Replacing bridges, we got many of our county road bridges that are having to be replaced. They're 45, 50 years old. When they were built, you would think it was around 25 or 30,000. To replace them, they're about 150,000. So that's the challenges the road superintendents across the state. I hear from them quite often, the challenges they got. So that's what one of our big challenges we're going to have in the next 2 to 3 years. We're going to have to deal with that at the state level, and it'll affect the county because people are concerned about the roads for safety and congestion are two of the main reasons.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions also about transportation. My annual questions about updates on Jefferson Pike and the Rocky Fork interchange in Smyrna, Sam Ridley Parkway. I was wondering if you could give me an update on where we are with those and if there's any estimated timeline for moving some earth and getting going.
Update on Jefferson Pike, and Representative Sparks may want to touch on it. As of yesterday, they're in the process of finishing up buying the right-of-way. And the first phase of Jefferson Pike, for everyone to know, goes from Smyrna to 840. And so they're in the process of doing that. Now, if they get the right-of-way purchased pretty quickly, it's possible to put it on next year's building program. Possible. I didn't say if it gets on there. So that will be determined. We get the building projects, the road projects about March, 1st of April. So we'll know that. So that's it on that. Rocky Fork interchange. We've got to continue to work with our federal government since it's on an interstate highway. There's some things that we're going to have to do, that Smyrna's going to have to do, that Rutherford County's going to have to do to move forward on that project. We still continue to work on that project. It's really more in the federal government's hands because of the interstate. And when you do interchanges on the interstate, they have a big play on it. Since Commissioner Gooch was talking about 10th Amendment, we may have to kick them on that a little bit. But yeah, that's the thing I'm hearing. And I've had some discussion with our U.S. senators, both of them, about that interchange. And I tell them how important it is. And they're working on their end to do that. Did I answer your question?
Sam Ridley Parkway.
Sam Ridley, it's got a lot of traffic on it. That's all I want to say on that. Yeah, all those things. When you talk about roads, it all comes back to money, and it comes to priorities as we come across the state. As I travel the state this fall, every community has 2 or 3 road projects that are adamant that they need to be done. Rutherford County is probably needing more than a lot of counties because of the growth. When you have the population growth that we're having, as Commissioner Johnson said, you got more people on the road with the cars, and traffic is more. So Sam Ridley, and that's where the cities, counties, and the state all need to work together to prioritize the projects. Rutherford County's done a good job of that. I think we're in good shape as far as the state knowing which projects are the most important. It just comes down to allocation of money and which roads need to be done the quick. I'd say Sam Ridley is on the burner, but it's a long ways from moving because the Jefferson Pike's much further up the line.
Chairman, I was just going to add to it. Thank you, Commissioner Stevens, for the question. You know, when I was a commissioner up here, I think we passed 3 resolutions, Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner P, asking the state to really scrutinize that and try to widen that Jefferson Pike. When I first got elected, I know many of y'all probably heard this story, out there at Mona Community, you know, there was and I tried to get those light poles moved. And so it takes an act of Congress to kind of get them light poles moved. They did make some safety improvements out there, but I always remember a lady hit one of the poles and the baby came out of the car seat, went through the windshield. That little area right there at Mona is just very dangerous. I traveled that road the other night, and well, many of us did at the little Christmas party the other day. And I just dreaded going down Jefferson Pike, you know, especially when you get out there by Mona. I seen Commissioner Shore the other day at the Governor's Veterans Service, and he brought up to me, and it reminded me of Ned Ray McWhorter, what Ned Ray McWhorter did. Jim knows what I'm talking about, Bill knows what I'm talking about. He says, well, don't you got a road over here you want to widen? I said, well, yes, sir, Jefferson Pike's been a priority. He says, and he kind of gave me a hint, and I said, sir, that road should have been widened 12 years ago. You got the major automotive manufacturer right here in Middle Tennessee. You got a major corridor coming through. No reason it needs to be a 2-lane coming in off 840, which is a 4-lane. So the states really lag when it comes to widen that road. But when you've been out there like I have, and you've talked to mothers that are crying in front of you that's lost children on Jefferson Pike, it's really heartbreaking. And many of y'all know some of these families. But I know Commissioner Jordan and Jack Black had been very adamant about that road improvement, as well as the city of Smyrna. So we're slowly working on it. It's just going to take some time, but it's kind of tough for the governor. You know, when we're number 2 with infrastructure, it's kind of a tough sell when you want to sell a gas tax when we're number 2 in the nation for having the best road. So it's hard to argue that bridges are falling down and large, massive potholes that are swallowing up little geo metros out there when we were number 2 in the nation for infrastructure.
I
We're
thought
number
they quit
2.
making geo metros.
Okay. No,
Just
Nissan
so
leaves.
y'all know, that's Senator Ketch reminded me there's between $6 and $8 billion of backlog. Now, I want to make sure y'all understand that this is good for everybody to know. When you get approved and a project gets approved like Jefferson Pike, it's like a 4-phase project. You have to approve the engineering, and that's 2% of the cost. The environmental is about 8% of the cost of a road. Then you have to buy the right-of-way. It's about 15% of the cost. So you can be approved on a project like Jefferson Pike. It may take 10 or 12 or 15 years because you got to work, and we have to pay as we go. So the General Assembly approves it, that we're going to approve and fund the project, but we fund it one phase at a time. And of course, the construction phase is 75%. So that tells you why it takes so long, and it's frustrating with me. And when you buy right away and you got utilities involved, and then you got environmental, which the EPA gets involved, and it takes a lot longer than I want it to take. But we're making progress to do that. The governor and commissioners decided they want them. Right now, the average time to build a brand new road is about 12 or 13 years. They're trying to move that down to 9 years.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I had a couple meetings with Department of Transportation to kind of echo what Senator Tracy said about the 12 years. That's what they had told me. Within the budget for construction, new construction, it's about $500 million per year. I think the nationwide average is about 15 years for construction to get through, and in Tennessee we're at 12. So that's where the $6 billion comes from, that $500 million per year for 12 years. So that's out there. Now the question will be long term, does that cost of construction go up as we do that? And then as well, they're trying to get the construction time down because of the growth here in Tennessee. But those are things that we're looking at.
I had another question. How much of a budget surplus did the state have this past year, and is there any chance that some of that money could be used to fund these projects?
Well, the governor, I'll add on that real quick if I could. I know the governor had mentioned that recently on his state tour when it comes to dealing with infrastructure. So I think that's one thing that the governor is looking at. I know Chairman Tracy could probably speak to it a little bit more than I could.
I was going to say, what, 600 million that we had? I will say that, like today, I think the revenue report came out, and I think we are 15 million over budget that we've raised as far as gas tax this year, which is about, for 4 months, so I think we're looking at 45 million above the projected budget, which would actually be like a 1.5% gas tax increase, what it would raise from that. So we're actually above what we've had budgeted, and so that obviously we would be looking at that as far as these projects.
Being a member of the Finance Committee in the Senate, one of the biggest problems you have, Mayor, you sometimes have this issue. It's easier when you don't have any money to pass a budget, but when you got excess money, then that may take us longer sitting down there arguing about it because everybody wants a piece of the pie. Now, we're blessed to be in Tennessee. Things are going very well for us compared to other states across this nation. But estimates look like right now we're going to come in with about 750 million in recurring dollars that will start out next month with the budget, and we're looking at about 735 million in non-recurring dollars. That's where the fight will come in, because Senator Tracy wants the governor to go in and take that 260 million out of that There's a movement by some to allocate $95 million for the much-needed library and archives. There's different projects all around the state that everybody wants a piece of that pie. So we may not get out as early as we did last year because we're arguing over too much money. We're just blessed to have it because if you recall, 3 years ago, we were $300 million in the hole, and we had to go in and cut every department. And I think all those departments have done a good job, and I think the Department of Revenue's from what the NFIB is saying, is attacking small business, but I don't think that they are. I talked to the commissioner. They're actually going in and auditing small businesses to make sure, and just since they started implementing these new rules that they have put into place, they've collected over $55 million. So that tells you some of these small businesses weren't being quite honest with self-reporting their own income. And so I encourage the commissioner to keep going, because that's just more income for us, because we're a state without a state income tax and we operate off of our sales tax. But if we got people out there cheating us, it's not fair for those who are paying their taxes correctly. So I don't think your chains and other type convenience stores, grocery stores, retail stores, I don't think that they're willing to gamble with that, but those small businesses, as NFIB is saying, it's not fair for them. Well, it's not fair for them not to pay their taxes when somebody else is. So I think we'll see a much larger increase. Some people just want to be dishonest and keep two cash registers, one for cash and one for checks. So I think you'll see a larger turnaround from that standpoint.
I'd like to add a little bit onto that as far as looking at new spending or new projects. What we need to look at is we do have an underfunded. I guess we're looking at 8% of our rainy day fund, and we're underfunded on that. The other thing is where else can we look to cut taxes? I think Rutherford County is a donor state, a donor county as far as the whole income tax goes. And if we could look for other ways to phase that down, if we have some recurring funds, that may be something that we could help with the county to look in that direction.
Leadership meeting last week with the governor, talks were leaning in that way, and the governor, has been resistance against taking anything out of the whole income tax because it's so important, but I think he left the door open to phase it in and start phasing it down. So I think that would be good because that will encourage those people. I remember George Law. Many of you remember George Law that used to have Bluebird Bus Company. He moved to Florida because everything he'd built here in Rutherford County, he didn't want to turn around and give it back to the state because of the whole income tax. So he moved to Florida because Florida doesn't have that same appropriate tax. So we want to try to phase that down. We got rid of the death tax and make it more acceptable for people to stay here and be more business friendly. That's what we're working for, to make it more acceptable and people want to come here and enjoy what we have in Tennessee. We just have to be ever mindful that changing it from the state that they came from, because they'll come in demanding the same thing that they had previously in the state. It costs more money, so we just have to be very diligent and keep our nose to the grindstone on that.
Two more things. The first one is that we're looking at building a big judicial building in the next few years. And some of us are trying to think of some creative ways that we can help fund that without looking at property taxes. Right now, the state caps what a county can charge at $25 for a fee when you file a case, whether you're in a criminal case or a civil case, that can be used for jail construction or courthouse construction. And I was wondering if you would be willing to support and help us increase that amount of the fee that a defendant or a plaintiff pays in a case to help us fund this new judicial building instead of going to the property taxpayers.
I would be willing to support that if you bring me, I can't speak for my colleagues, but if you bring me a resolution from the county commission by 2/3 vote.
would be a great big help for us if we could help use increased fees from that to fund the judicial building instead of going to our property taxpayers. And I was going to make a motion for that later tonight after we finish our discussion. And then one more thing we had talked about several months ago was increasing the number of members on the Board of Zoning Appeals. We recently changed our zoning regulations in the county, and that board has 5 members currently, and it has a great amount of power. And we thought it would be very helpful if we could increase the number from 5 to either 7 or 9 to expand the number of voices on there. And we were going to also have a motion for that tonight to ask.
Of course, that'll be a private act. Just bring us a resolution, but keep in mind the bill cutoff date that we gave you. So you'll have this week's meeting and next month's meeting would be it, Mayor.
We've sort of looked into that. I think we should request an amendment to the General Act. It already says 3 and 5, and it also gives permission for charter counties and that are less than 600,000 in population to have 5, 7, or 9. So it appears to be simple enough, maybe just to amend the general law, we think.
Well, we could do that, but we'd like to have the resolution from the county. I think delegation would be happy to support you.
A couple of questions. I think the chairman of transportation knows one of my questions. I would like an update on Bradyville Pike, and I will be asking that as long as I'm a commissioner here in Rutherford County.
You do every time I see you.
That's correct.
And you got a one-way mind on that.
That's right.
That is on, there you go. There's another road to Bradyville Pike, and also some, not just you, I get a lot of calls from other people about that. So I would the best thing we can do, Commissioner McAdoo, on those is, just keep it out front. Remind us all the time. When TDOT knows it's an issue. The city has brought that to them also because it also is an issue for the city. So they're very aware of Bradyville Pike. I'm much aware of it because of you and other folks that remind me. So there's so many projects here in Rutherford County. We could be here all night talking about projects that are needed, but Bradyville Pike is very needed. And that's a safety issue. When we talk about transportation, safety and congestion are 2 of the big issues, and that is a safety issue. Thanks for reminding me. I'll bring that up when I see the deputy commissioner tomorrow.
And I have another question. Our correctional system, our county jail is bubbling over right now with population. When will the state be able to take more state prisoners? In other words, we need the relief here in Rutherford County. If not, then one of your federal judges will probably be telling us we need to build a jail. So when will you be able to give us some relief on that?
I'm not sure on that, Commissioner, but I'm hearing that from my other counties also. Bedford County, they're looking at building a jail. Lincoln County just built a big addition onto their jail. Marshall County in my district is also having some problems. So I think everybody's asking that question. I will, and I think Senator Ketron's on state and local, so we can put that in his notes to make sure that the state and local looks at that, because that'll come through that committee. We hear about it all the time from other counties, not just Rutherford County. It's a big issue. And, also, too, I was sort of going to follow back up on Commissioner Stevens. There's going to be a movement this year, Commissioner Phillips might have touched on this, too, to allow counties and cities to do more on their own. Give a little more free, because there's some caps on certain things. And I've heard from other counties and cities wanting to give the opportunity to let the counties and cities have a little more freedom on certain things. And I think that's going to be a big discussion this year. So I'll bring that. Thanks for bringing that up to us. We can talk about it. The prison system is a big, whether it be at the local level, at the state level, it's a big issue. We just got too many people going to jail.
I think, Commissioner McAdoo, I think you'll see a movement also through your judiciary committees in both houses to go start releasing for probation for those minor drug charges compared to the hardened criminals that we have, which will free up some space. We don't have any choice. there's just not enough dollars to build more brick and mortar. So I think you'll see some of that, to vacate some of those, and then the state will be able to take some of those state inmates that you're currently housing, because we haven't increased what we're paying you right now per inmate per day in quite some time. You know, it's just our corrections budget's right at $1 billion. We're having a few issues internally, but I think we're going to work the kinks out of that. We're going to be looking at TriCore. I think we're going to put out the cook chill operation, see if we can get some funding relief there by putting it out to bid, reducing our cost. Whenever we can reduce costs, we might be able to shift another $5 per inmate per day is where I'd like to see the money go from a correction standpoint. You know, but those are all things that are in the works this year.
Thank you, Commissioner McAdoo. Abraham Lincoln had a quote that said, if I had 6 years to chop a tree down, or 6 hours to chop a tree down, I'd spend 5 sharpening my axe. And what we do as government, we don't stop at sharpen our axe. I want to compliment Mayor Burgess. He spoke at New Vision Baptist Church. They had the workhouse, Menards Land. He had the inmates out there and their children for Christmas. Appreciate Ernest being there. You know, I talked to the sheriff of the day. I think he was over capacity, about 250 folks. I don't know if he's in the audience or not, but I think he had about 250 additional folks. Some folks sleep on the floor. You know, I know y'all got this PCC situation that folks may not want to talk about, but I would encourage the steering committee and public safety to sit down and talk to some of these families. Listen to some of these people. If some of these folks are being violated that shouldn't be violated, then that's impacting your jail. That's sharpening your axe. That's slowing down and sharpening that axe. What are people being violated for? I mean, Commissioner Stevens, you mentioned adding some fees. A lot of these folks are poor. I mean, how many more fees are we going to put on their taxpayers too? Some may be working at McDonald's. They lose their license. Our DUI arrests are up 92%. Sadly, that's never been on the front page of the paper. Maybe Sam's covered it before. 92% increase. That's an epidemic. We got a drug epidemic on our hands. And it's not just me saying it. Governor Haslam has said it too, and I was proud of the governor for saying that. Our prison budget increased $46 million. One of the best things I think this county commission done, I appreciate leadership Mayor Burgess, is that new workhouse. Some of you older guys, Mr. Johnson, you remember the old workhouse built in like 1928, 1930, you know. But we got to rethink how we're doing these things. You know, I'll argue to turn a man's life around, to teach him to fish instead of giving him a fish is a conservative issue. It's not a liberal issue. It's not a bleeding heart issue. Let's have a paradigm shift of how we're looking at those that's incarcerated. Look at this PCC situation. If one person's civil rights are violated, that's one too many. I think we just need to get a hold of this. Maybe there's a way the county can do this in-house. I don't know. But the numbers should at least be scrutinized. Lay the numbers out on the table and say, you got some smart folks up here. And say, does this make sense? Are people being violated that shouldn't be violated? That's impacting our infrastructure. That's impacting you. It's impacting the taxpayers. So I hate to say it, I don't see the problem getting any better. Sadly, I see it getting worse. And the state's guilty of inventing more laws to impact more lives that we think we're turning men's lives around. We're making it worse so many times. Sometimes the legislature staying out of people's business may be the best thing sometimes. You know, that's the way I see things. But we got to have a paradigm shift. This PC situation, I've had mothers call me crying over their kids and their grandkids of what's going on with that. And I know y'all have heard some of these things too, but I really want to emphasize, y'all look at this. Ask for the numbers. Look at the contract. What's going on? It may not be your family, but it may be your cousin. It may be one of your church members. We can't build bigger jails. You can't continue to raise taxes. And I know y'all are facing some tough issues. You know, I appreciate y'all y'all passed it 21-0, where I run the proclamation, a resolution, talking about unfunded mandates. I had a couple of members didn't vote for that, to be honest with you. They were looking at me like, what are you doing here? Because they know they're guilty. It's easy to balance your budget, but we don't want to pass it on to you or Fentress County or DeKalb County. But this PC situation, this really bothers me, and I think it should bother y'all. We need to really study this issue. And some smart people up on this commission. Commissioner Stevens, you'd be good at studying this issue. Jeff Phillips, you'd be good. All of y'all be good at studying these numbers and really seeing what we can do to help people, rather than continue to raise fees and condemn them.
No, I just want to commend Senator Ketchum for bringing up a point that the state is looking at doing something with the ones that I have minor charges. In other words, that's what I want to get out of your mouth, because that is a big issue. That is a really big issue, and I can see it alleviating a lot of our situation if the state or somebody move on what we can do. I like the idea of the steering committee having all this power that was brought up, but I just don't see us having this power without the state. The state is the key to doing this, and that's the reason I brought it up.
It looks like we have several commissioners in our audience and deputy mayor. If you have any questions or comments for our legislators, I would like to invite you to a chair with a microphone. As you're making your way, I'll acknowledge the mayor to see if he has any questions or comments to our state legislators.
Okay, first I want to say one of the main problems that Rutherford County is facing, and we will continue to face for many, many years to come, is funding our education. And with the growth that all of us knows is occurring and will occur, we have to build at least one new school a year, at least. This is not just hocus pocus, this is reality. We had to raise our taxes 20 cents last year just to fund the operational cost of our schools. No one's really talking about this complex formula that we call the BEP formula that hasn't been changed, it hasn't been addressed, it hasn't been focused on. And this is happening in every single county, especially those that are growing like we are. There was a little pool of money at one point that was $25 million a year that was distributed across certain county school systems that had growth in excess of certain percentages. That number has been shrunk to $10 million. There's just not any real healthy discussion, Mr. Sparks, about sharpening our axes or making any real effort to address the needs in our educational system. So we don't know what to do with this. We're spending over 75% of our money in our county budget for education, and it's not decreasing. This BEP formula supposedly was addressed to have some sort of component for capital. We're not getting 1 cent for capital contribution to build any of these schools or pay the principal and interest on them. So I don't know where we go with this, but somebody needs to help us get their arms around this and put some sort of plan in place that would put some sort of study group or something and get serious about this. I have one or two other things, but I'll stop with that.
That's plenty to give us, but there, yes, you're right. We did BEP 2.0 a few years ago, and that helped a little bit on the fast growth counties. There is much discussion about revamping the BEP program. As you pointed out, Mayor Burgess, when a family moves in, you don't receive enough property taxes when you have 2 children in school, and that's about the average, about 2 children per household. And you know what it costs per student to go to school? It's probably right at $65,000 to $7,000 per student, and you don't get enough property taxes to pay for them. So there's a lot of discussion about that. I have a feeling you and I will be discussing it on TASER pretty quickly. For the governor's going to look at that, because you've got counties like Williamson County, Rutherford County, Wilson County. All these donut counties around Nashville are having trouble. Not as bad as Rutherford, but because I think we're growing faster. But like you said, having to build schools and the cost of doing that. So we're going to have to do it. And you know, we did put in there, Mayor Burgess, so you'll know, I think the state pays about 65%, the county about 35% of the per dollar that comes, and then we can crank that dial up to go to 75%, and the county contribute 25%. Just so you'll know, it's in that formula. We got it complicated so you wouldn't figure it out, but it's in there.
It's in there, but we just got that raised to 65 just a short time ago, and there's
Right.
no indication we're going to move that 65 on
If
up
y'all
the line.
push for it, we might.
But we're pushing for it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the future of Middle Tennessee. It's the future of Tennessee. If we don't provide proper education and fund this, we can't continue to put all this burden of debt on our citizens.
Chairman, if I could, what I was talking about specifically was the incarceration issue. Let's break that down. Dr. Deming had a Kaizen is something I always admired about Nissan. Constant, never-ending improvement. Constant, never-ending improvement. Have y'all ever even had a discussion about the PCC contract? Let's just go back to that one particular area so you can sharpen that axe. One particular area. Have y'all ever even discussed something like that? Have y'all run the numbers on that? That's sharpening your axe. That's what I'm talking about, sir.
Mr. Sparks, I think you need to come by my office and spend a few minutes with me. You're not well informed about how this system works.
Have you
In
had a
any respect,
discussion?
all these things
Had a
you're
discussion, sir.
discussing are, yes, and they're studied every day, every week,
Have.
every month. I look at
Before
this data.
public safety, before steering.
Listen,
We're asking you-
I just want to say this. One needs to be properly informed with factual information before they make statements. And let me go a little bit further. Excuse
All
me,
right,
I'm
we'll
not
meet with the
finished, Mr.
families.
Sparks.
I'll bring the families with me, and you meet with them. We'll do that then. I'll do that. Thank you, sir.
And I want to say this about this. You see these green books? Everything in here has been passed by the legislative body in Nashville, Tennessee. Every law regarding people that violate these things, we have to enforce, our law enforcement do. If we want to make changes on how many people are coming in and what they're arrested for, we need your help. We can't do a thing except enforce the laws that have been put before us in all of our counties all across this whole
Let's
state.
sit down and have a discussion specifically to this situation. This
Okay, so-
situation, not get into landfill infrastructure, get into specific situations, how we can find resolutions that we can, whether it's legislatively or whether it's locally, that we can solve some of these problems. Because families are hurting. I'm getting the phone calls. I hear from the mothers. I want y'all to hear from these mothers. Are y'all willing to listen to some of these folks at steering or public safety? Would you be willing, Chairman?
Representative Sparks, we're here to ask you guys questions.
I'm asking you a
Okay,
question,
we're-
too.
we're- Not
I'm
the vice
asking you a
versa.
question, too.
If y'all want to invite us to
This is a
Nashville,
two-way
and
street.
we can answer your question.
It's a two-way
But right
street.
now, I'm going to call on Commissioner Rhonda Allen.
I wish I could say on a lighter note, but it's really not. The mayor really reinforced the top two issues that I have, and that is the BEP funding. As the chairman of Health and Ed, we tour the schools. We look at the children's faces. We see the teachers who are trying to be, educators off of carts and in closets. And so I cannot express to you enough how important it is that you help us with this. The other tremendous concern, and this is a catchphrase, and I don't like using catchphrases, unfunded mandates. There's nothing that comes across anybody's desk that's labeled, hey, this is an unfunded mandate. That's not what they're called. They're called everything else, and then they slide in. Like, for example, the computer testing that we needed to switch over. I completely endorse technology, and I believe that's the way of the future, and we absolutely need to take that. We didn't have to take the bite all at once. The way things happened, they changed on our school system midstream. We thought we were going to be in good shape with the budget. We thought we were going to be in good shape with our computers. And then all of a sudden they tell us that we can't use XP. So now, boom, you have to drop $4 million in 1 year on computers. That's a tough pill to swallow. So those are the kinds of things that you can help us with to say, stage it in, phase it in. And I'm not going to touch Common Core. I'm not going to touch any of the rest of that. But I'm just telling you, these kids need to be educated. They need the technology. I have other teacher friends who will say to you, I have computers in my classroom, but they take 30 minutes to warm up. I can't run all the kids through one computer. Those aren't the teachers with the new computers. Those aren't the ones that are set aside for the testing. So if anything, just the way we set aside a few pennies for our capital improvement projects that we do for our schools, I believe at some point very soon, we're gonna have to set aside pennies just for technology, just to be able to keep up with, or try to keep up with the pace of that. So those are some things, I know they're on your radar, but it's my job to reinforce them and to tell you, I really need you to focus on these.
They're definitely, thank you. I know Mayor Burgess brings this out to me quite often, and I do think there is a big movement to try to do something about, especially about capital money for, especially the faster growing counties, such as Rutherford County. That is really not in the BEP formula like it should be. So we know that. I think there may be a big push. Senator Ketron probably got a little more since he's on the Finance Committee. I think this will be something we will discuss, because we're hearing that also with the technology. Other counties are having the same issue. Not as big as Rutherford, but so I think I got it. I think we'll push forward with that.
Commissioner Outland, thank you for your comments and well taken. We'll take it to heart. The Governor did say that he was going to be working on and Mayor is going to be working on more equality as far as the funding is concerned. And I'm not giving this as an excuse on our behalf, but let me just say that one of the frustrating parts that we as members of the General Assembly and the Senate and the House that we're faced with, and it's very, very frustrating, is many times we don't vote on things that go into those green books, Mayor, that become law. Many times after we leave session, the bureaucrats who are running these departments, they pass rules, and those rules end up becoming law. There's nothing in that green book that says mandates the school districts have to implement that many computers. That's not a law. That's not a bill that I remember. It became the commissioner. They said, the Board of Education, they sit around and say, this is the projection working in conjunction with the local school board association and the school association. They kind of direct a lot of directions for education that we're not passing, and we never come privy to even voting on that. We come back and we find out locally that it's been implemented through rules, and that's the frustrating part for us. And many times commissioners come and go, governors come and go, and even we come and go, but a lot of times there's a number 2 position, 3 position, 4 position in these different departments, be it environment or TDOT or wherever. They kind of direct, when a new commissioner comes in, they kind of direct the movement of those different departments, and that's the frustrating part that we have as well. So we're trying to lock down on that and knock some of the bark off of that tree so we can actually see what it actually represents. We've done a good job, but we'll continue working in that direction.
It's helpful for me to know that, because I didn't know that till you just said it. But one of the things that I would also encourage you to do is to look at the system. If there's like you said, you're trying to knock off the bark, hopefully that's what you're doing, is you're looking at the system and you're saying, these are the negative impacts of having the system that we have. Just like, for example, when Senator Tracy was talking about how you get a road improved. Last night, that it's a multi-tiered process. Last night in Planning Commission, we just approved a new development on Amelville Road for 100 new homes, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it's going to be right there in the sharpest S-curve on that road. And where those houses are going to be built, because we've not already acquired the right of way, because we know that road needs to be improved. It's on the long range transportation plan, but there's no system to go ahead and acquire the right of way before the houses are built. So now the house is going to be built, and if we want to improve that road, we're going to have to go take those homes from folks, and then you're going to hear a lot of screaming and fussing about eminent domain. Where if we had acquired it in advance, then we could have planned for it long term. So those are the kinds of things where I say, look at the system and let's see what's working in the system and what can we change about the system, because you know as well as I do, we don't have a perfect system. Yeah. There was one more thing I wanted to say about education, and that is we've talked a lot about capital. The other issue is, of course, teacher salaries and teacher morale. One of the reasons that we had to have the tax increase that we had this year was because the governor had told teachers, you're getting a 4% pay increase. Well, that didn't translate through to teachers who have tenure or additional degrees, that sort of thing. So it actually ended up being about a 2.3% raise by the time the dollars that came from the state to us that we actually put in the teachers' pockets. So we had to make up that difference. And then there's never any money that comes for the unclassified staff. And so it's our philosophy that if you're going to raise teacher salaries, you need to be able to raise the cafeteria workers and the libraries and the bus drivers and everybody else. So those are also elements that I'd like you to take into consideration, not only those staff, but also it really bothers me when people say, oh, look at this great thing we did. We just passed, a 4% raise for teachers. Yeah, you passed it, but you didn't pass the money through. And so those are the kinds of things that that bug me as a leader and bug my constituents. So I'd really like for you to try to work on those things as well.
Commissioner Reed?
Representative White and gentlemen, I appreciate y'all being here this evening, and I think our steering committee has done an excellent job here in asking you questions, but I did have to come forward tonight to say to Senator Tracy, I couldn't leave here tonight without saying something about Highway 99, just like the commissioner up here. But and you've already mentioned Highway 99, and you know the importance of what it means to transportation out there, to that area out there, for people to get back and forth to get to work, to transport goods and things of this, and what the continued growth is out there. So I think we understand that, and I wanted to mention that. And also, I retired from a job of 44 years to take on the responsibility of getting on the Commission's Health and Education Committee and Public Safety, and that's all I've heard here tonight is what you've discussed there. But I'd have to ditto what the mayor has said here and what we faced this year in our budget situation and what we faced as far as trying to answer the problem we had is trying to pay for these things. And we're just needing any type of help we can get in that and what can come from you. And I do appreciate every time I've tried to contact any of you sitting here in these chairs that you've always been available to me. And that is appreciated as a commissioner out here trying to talk to my constituents. Did want to mention one other thing that is very important to me in that rural area of this county. But I have to reflect back on many years ago that that area out there and around other rural areas of Rutherford County, there was a lack of good, clean drinking water. We just didn't have it. And if you remember, it just seemed impossible for that to happen in this county, but a group of farmers got together and put together a utility district. And then later that utility district became CUD that we have today, which is providing water all over this county. Also, it was told to me my grandfather of how he cut cedar trees out there, made them into telephone poles, and telephone lines were run out that way by a group of farmers that brought telephone service to the rural area of Rutherford County so people out there could communicate. And that was something that they had to do. And then there was a possibility that they weren't going to have the chance to have electric lights. And then a group of farmers got together to have petition signs and things of this type so the rural area could have a light bulb in a house. Well, now we're in a situation where there's another utility on the forefront that something needs to be done, and I'm just wondering if I'm needing to call together all my farmers out that way. But we now have the utility of broadband, that the rural area all across Tennessee, and I think you're hearing it too, but especially here in Rutherford County, that yes, here within the city and things that, people are really receiving broadband, but you go to areas of Rutherford County on the fringe areas in particular, and I know in the Eagleville, Rockville area out there are places it's just not there. And I'm thinking that somewhere, somehow, we're needing to do something to bring broadband into the rural area out there that's available and affordable for these people to be able to go to this new utility. It's becoming just as big as water, electricity, and the telephone. And I think that's something that we today need to be focusing on, seeing what can be done, how it can be done, and in some way to make it available.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Reed. Commissioner Gurley?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank each one of you for being here. It's good to get an update on what's going on and the problems that we face, that is you and I face. I was in a State Route 102, Senator Tracy. My fellow commissioner just introduced that topic. But I got introduced to it a few days ago. I was at a Smyrna City Council meeting. I asked Councilman Morrell to join us here tonight so he could get an update on what's going on. But the growth, Smyrna just annexed a portion, several hundred new homes right there, right off of 102. As you mentioned, the subdivision that's just been approved and more coming online. And so it's just one. I'll just keep that in the you said keep it in the forefront, so I'll just keep it in the forefront. I know it's in competition with Commissioner McAdoo's Highway 99 and the other end of Highway 99 and all the rest. But obviously we face issues from the school system. We face issues from corrections. We face issues in a lot of things. And one of the things that I would like to see is, I'm not sure exactly how to go about it, but, at the state, the county, the city, we each have we're a little bit compartmentalized. I would like to see more effort, and maybe it starts at the top, maybe it starts down at the bottom, as Commissioner Reed indicated. But if we could do more together, because I don't think we're going to be able to pass enough taxes to do everything we need to do. So I'm just throwing this out here for thought, but city, county, state, and man, what a novel idea for going on up to the federal level, but that's never will happen. But let's just keep it in Tennessee. City, county, state, working more together, one thought, one objective, and so on. And I see you're talking about technology, and that's broadband, something I did that for years. I know something about, but technology is one way maybe to help solve some of our other problems, like corrections issues and so on, because we have the capability. You have capability on your smartphone to track your kids. We can have the capability to track those people that we want to keep up with, so on. So I just wanted to throw that out. I'm not going to, other than State Route 102, I'm not going to push any particular issue. Education is dear to me. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a teacher. We've got to educate our kids. If we don't educate our kids, then they become victims of another institution. And so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dodd.
Yes, wanted to follow up on a comment Commissioner Stevens mentioned a fee attached to a transaction, and you, Senator Ketchner, stated it requires a resolution that you would consider. And Senator Tracy, you mentioned that you are considering some means to grant the counties more freedom or more. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. There's other communities that have come to me of movement. Let me just give you an example. I think, and y'all, Mayor Burgess may know more about this than I do, local governments can only, I think 1 cent on the gas tax is all you can do if you do it by referendum, and there's a movement to give local governments a little more flexibility. It'll have to be legislation to allow local governments to do some other things. So there's a movement across different communities to allow local governments where it's capped by the state, like Commissioner Stevens said, on that fee to allow local governments, because what Commissioner Gurley was talking about. I mean, we're in a process now where we're all going to have to work together. State, local are going to have to work together, county and city, to get it done. There's just not enough money to do it. We're going to have to work together. So it may give an opportunity for the local communities to do that. And I think that may be cities more than the counties, but the cities are looking at having a local option where they can utilize their local option to fund transportation. I think right now they can only do 1 cent per gallon or something.
Your comment was specifically towards fuel taxes. And Senator Ketron, you were discussing the resolution requirements to free up more money in various ways. Do you recall any of the motivation behind, for instance, tying our hands regarding an impact fee, for instance? It's my understanding that we cannot create or increase an impact fee or increase our development tax fee. Could you help me understand why our hands were tied in our desire to generate revenue to pay for growth? Do you recall that, Senator?
I believe those impact fees, Commissioner, that was a long time ago. We had those discussions about impact fees, and I think that was general application on a statewide basis. In order to get something passed, it didn't give the option of the counties to opt in or opt out. It had to have the statewide application. There were too many communities putting pressure on their local representatives not to give that authority. That's the best way I recall that, Mayor.
It was when they passed the County Powers Act that those counties that had development taxes in place, or impact fees, you might say, they could remain in place, but you could not initiate a new one. And they did put some limits, and I don't remember exactly. You can increase our development tax a small amount of money based on, we have to have a certain percentage growth within our population. So it's very limited in what you can do currently, and you cannot impose a new one if you didn't have one before.
And it's been such a long time, I don't recall those increases, and I don't know if that's been reviewed recently to look at that.
And I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
it's just trying to go back that far.
Being a relatively new commissioner, and I've been shocked at our inability to generate revenue, and I've determined that a lot of those inabilities are hindrances placed on us by the state. So that's why I was just trying to get some understanding of
the
motivation behind that.
Commissioner, the cities have more flexibility because they pass ordinances, and that's based on that structure of laws, where the counties are a subdivision of the state. So that's usually why it takes a statewide application to do it, as opposed to a city, a municipality being able to pass those respective ordinances. They can do that after 3 readings, and of course now they want me. I get a call from the city, and they want to go to 2 readings as opposed to 3 readings. To shorten their time that they have to go down to City Hall and listen to the same issue. So they're trying to pass that this year.
Alan?
I had a question I didn't get to. What is your general feeling about the gas tax being increased in the coming year? Because as we know, our development is completely outpacing our infrastructure. And so, and people complain a lot about, how apartment dwellers maybe don't pay their fair share, or illegal aliens don't pay theirs. Well, everybody buys gas. And so I'm just curious to know what you think is going to happen with that, and look in your crystal ball.
I'll go first, and we'll pass it all the way down. Okay. My personal opinion is if we would have put in an index 25 years ago, or whenever it was back in 82, 83, then we probably wouldn't be having this discussion right now. And so whatever we do, there needs to be some indexing put into that general law. I don't see that passing this year. I don't think that the governor has traveled around. Senator Tracy's traveled. He was, I'm not sure you all end up in the same city or not, talking about those issues. He was more transportation. The governor was talking about the gas tax. But as Senator Tracy previously stated, we haven't done a very good job and the governor hasn't done a very good job of educating the public, other than saying we need a gas tax. Well, how much? 10, 15, 25%? Throw a number out at us. But we haven't done a good job on educating because of what are we going to charge for electric cars, what are we going to charge for hydrogen cars. I passed a bill 2 years ago that allowed liquefied natural gas to be used. UPS came down from Kentucky, and they put in a $30 million terminal because they're converting all their trucks over to liquefied natural gas. Where they're going to be using the roads, what do we charge them? How do we convert that over to a tax? So if we just need to step back, take a whole year. I don't think it's going to pass, and I hate using this, but it's an election year, and you're not going to find members, especially for those in the House who run every 2 years. It will draw out an opponent against them if they vote for a tax. So I don't see that passing this year, but I told the governor that I would totally support it next year, but we need to look at it long-term because those needs are here. If we want to remain in top 1, 2, or 3 in the country and having best roads and bridges in our state, then it's time. You can drive to Brentwood and see what you pay for gas in Brentwood. It's like 15 cents or 20 cents higher than what we pay here. We have some of the cheapest gas in the state. So maybe that being able to add another penny or two in locally might be something you need to look at. But that's my opinion. It's not going to pass this year, but next year probably so because it's non-election year.
I'll answer that as very similar to Senator Ketron. I've asked the governor and TDOT to come back and give us a plan for 10 years. What's our 10-year plan on roads and bridges across the whole state of Tennessee? So we need to know what the plan is, and then we need to know how much revenue we're going to need to meet that plan. We're not ready to do it yet. We haven't done anything on transportation funding since 1989. So we've got to, if we're going to do something, it's got to be done correctly, and it's got to be done where it'll last long term. And for my children and my grandchildren, I hope I have grandchildren with them, because it won't be done again. So our plan is to spend the next year finding out what our needs are. This is where y'all could come in as a county. What I would ask y'all to do is come back with Commissioner McAdoo's proposal on Bradyville Pike. You got Commissioner Reed's proposal on Highway 99, your proposal on 102, and other roads at Jefferson Pike. We need to know what the priorities are in Rutherford County. And I think we do a plan off that 10-year plan, and then we come up with a revenue, how much revenue we're going to meet that plan. And then we go to the citizens of Tennessee, and they're the ones that, all of us are going to be the ones that pay this. And we need to look at all proposals. I've talked to people from all over the country and how they're doing it in other states. So we're not there yet to get that done, but I'm willing to do the research to try to figure out. Because, you know, one thing, you're elected as a county commissioner, we're elected as state representatives and state senators to come up with solutions. And one of the reasons why we have such a good transportation plan now, because the people before us have planned, and we're going to have to do that for the long term here. And that's what we're going to try to do.
I'd like to add to that. Back in May, I sat down with the governor and talked to him about multitude of issues, including this, and he told me about his plan to go on his listening tour. And basically he was going to gauge what the pulse of the state was with that. And they came to Murfreesboro, and I talked with the Department of Transportation at the time and asked them for a long-term plan, a 10-year plan. And met with them again and with the governor's staff last month sometime, and again they had not been able to get with me a long-term plan, and at that time they said they didn't even have a mechanism. So everyone keeps talking about gas tax. They don't have a mechanism in place or how they would implement anything. So that's not even on the ground floor right now, or that is the ground floor. They don't have that built yet. So getting this 10-year plan, I met with the Department of Transportation last week again, and they basically gave me a 10-year reflection on what they had and didn't have anything projected into the future of where their budget would be. And for me, that's what I was wanting was 10 years, where your priorities are, where you see the budget, that $500 million that we talk about that's for new construction, $500 million for maintenance. How do you see that projected over the 10 years based on these projects that we have? Like I said, we just had an increase for this past 4 months of $15 million in the gas tax revenue. How does that factor into your long-term plan? So we need those as representatives and senators before we, if the funding is there or if we have an increase in the amount of revenue that we have in, and you want us to make a long-term decision without that, without the facts there in front of us, we can't do that. So those are some things that we're looking at, and I agree with Senator Tracy that we do need some long-term information from them for us to make an informed decision.
No, I will echo what the gentleman says. It will not pass this year. I think there's too many things still up in the air. I agree. We need to look at it, but I have said this and I will say it again. I am not for a gas tax. I do not believe that we need to tax hardworking individuals driving to work every day, put more burdens on working families, and as a conservative, I don't believe. I do believe we need to look at alternatives. There's always a surplus. There's always, as Senator Ketron says, different fuels. There's going to be electric cars. We need to look at alternatives, but I am not for a gas tax no matter, what year it will be. I'll be no vote.
I was just reading online, it takes 107 days for Americans to pay their taxes. 107 days you've got to work to pay your taxes. And all that is another increase. We do have some infrastructure needs, but let me remind you, we're number 2 in the nation when it comes to infrastructure. That's what I've always been told. Maybe number 3. So it's hard to sell a gas tax when we brag that we're number 2 in the nation for infrastructure. Weekly lane's been a big concern for me, and I want to compliment Greg Brooks, Highway Superintendent, for improving that road. But I had asked him, I said, what's the plan for Mount Juliet to Smyrna? And he said, Mike, there is no plan. I'm like, what do you mean there's not a plan? I would think there's a 25-year, 30-year plan to Mount Juliet from Weekly Lane, but there's no plan. He said, Mike, there's just not money. I don't know if Greg's out here in the audience, but he's done a great job on Jefferson Pike. He was telling me the bridge is, or Weekly Lane, the bridge will slated to be improved next year. But there are infrastructure needs, but the pulse I get from people just don't want no more taxes. Plain and simple. Small businesses don't want any more taxes. Individuals, seniors. I think we're in the times of doing more with less. And I often quote, when we were with Governor Haslam last week, Jim and Bill, 2 weeks ago, and he used to quote Thomas Friedman, who wrote the book, The World is Flat, an economist. And Thomas Friedman had made the comment about government's been in the business of giving things away for all these years. Now they're going to be in the business of taking things away. If not, the marketplace will help to define that. We're just in the times we're going to have to learn to do more with less. Everybody wants everything, but nobody wants to pay for it. Speaking, I'll go back on education. I toured the new $40 million Nissan TCAT yesterday across from Nissan. Largest single investment to the town of Smyrna since Nissan. We've got the new $147 million science building that I want to compliment delegation for, and also compliment John Hood and Kent Coleman and others that were before us, and Bredesen, that helped to work for that and lobby for that. We've got the new Motlow expansion, was it roughly $30 million, and I want to thank the county commission for participating in that. Thank you for Mayor Burgess for helping with that. They're already full. That's the fastest growing community college in the state of Tennessee. And I talked to Dr. Kinkle just last Friday about it. We already need the new building. Talked to Chairman Sargent, the governor's mansion, of the day about it. I said, what if we get concrete donated? Does that help? And he looked at me like, it could. I don't know if we can pull that off, but we've got real needs, there's no doubt. But the TCAT, going back to McAdoo, what we were talking about, the prisons and so forth, and even Commissioner Gurley, what I'm so excited about that TCAT, that's welding, auto body, small diesel repair. That'll be some things that guys and gals could participate in that may not want to go to MTSU and pick up and participate in the $1.3 trillion worth of student debt. There's a lot of needs, but what frustrates me with government, I had this microphone in my hand, several years ago, and we're talking about education. We continue to talk about these things. D.C. spends, $20,000 per pupil in spending. I'd argue our school system is better than D.C.'s. But how much is enough? How much more money are we going to ask for You know, sometimes I think, going back to sharpening the axe analogy, we've just got to look and see what can we do to do more with less. My father grew up during the Great Depression. He got by, didn't owe a man nothing. I was always proud of him. Didn't live in a mansion, but he didn't owe a man nothing. I always admired him. And he didn't talk to me for about 6 months because I borrowed money and bought a used Mercedes. He wouldn't talk to me because he thought I was trying to live high on the hog, is what he called it. But I remember those times that my dad instilled that in me. We can't continue just to raise more money. I mean, I see it with higher ed. It bothers me. These kids coming out of college I talked to one the other day, $80,000 worth of student debt. $80,000. And we're continuing to put more pressure on them. We got to learn to do more with less. We can do better. We can, like Commissioner Gurley just talked about, we can do online things. Apps can be developed. Maybe it's monitoring inmates rather than housing them over here that are nonviolent offenders. It's in there for a simple drug charge. We can do better. What bothers me, even with the legislature, we don't slow down and sharpen our axe. We brag that we get out so early that we save the taxpayers' money. No, we're going to go clean up what we messed up the year before. I shouldn't say that, but it frustrates me. You know, I was accused of wanting to save the world by the guy that sat in this seat years ago. It was a compliment to me. He's no longer up here anymore. But we got to save our world. Mayor, I appreciate you being at New Vision. Hate to get so passionate about these things, but these are real issues that's affecting families. It's affecting grandparents that are raising kids, single mothers that are working. Let me get in this payday loan industry. I would like the steering committee to take a position on the payday loan industry. You think, what does that got to do with county commission? It's got to do with families. It's got to do with taxpayers. These people being charged 1,500%. It's a real issue. It's a real issue that no one wants to talk about. As a Christ follower, I think we should all talk about these things. They're real issues and have the courage to talk about them. We can throw more money at the problems, but sometimes let's slow down and say, what are we doing here? I talked to the Commissioner of Banking the other day. I said, tell me if you borrow $1,000, how much you going to pay back? He couldn't give me an answer. It's frustrating when the legal department can't tell me how much it's going to cost that individual. That single black females are 400% more likely to fall victim to those payday loan industries. But there's nobody taking a stand on these issues. Your newspaper, well, I criticize the newspaper, but you know what? They've really done a pretty good job on covering some of this, and I got to thank them for it. These are frustrating issues for me, because I'm telling you, in 10 years, folks, it's going to affect families. Commissioner Gooch, I know you got a good heart for wanting to help people. I know you do. I wish y'all study some of these issues. Ask these hard questions. I'm asking them. I want them to take the darts. I want them to go up against an industry that's got $1 billion. I'm willing to fight it. You know, but these are tough issues. Thank you, Commissioner Allen, for asking the question. There are real needs out there.
Just to close out, Chairman, on this, I want to put some statistics out before we leave, just so you know. Gasoline tax, 21.4 cents a gallon. Diesel tax, 18.4. It is a use tax. If we put a fee on every electric car in the state of Tennessee of $150 a year, it would bring in $500,000, $500,000. I mean, you can spend that in 2 miles on Highway 99, less than 2 miles on Highway 99. So the challenges are for us at the General Assembly are not going away. And they're not going to go away for y'all at the county commissioner. At the end of the day, we're going to have to make some tough decisions in the next year or two. We're at a crossroads. Do we want to continue to grow? Are we going to make the tough decisions? That's what we're going to have to look at. And you see the challenges here tonight. That's why we've got to talk to we need your help to talk to the constituents to let them know where we are. There's not much choices on transportation. We either pay as we go or we borrow money. If you borrow money, if you borrow money for a road, and if you got to pay the debt before you fix the road, I don't think that's good management. So we're looking at all kind of ways to do it. I've talked to people from all over the country. No one has figured out a very good way. It is a use tax. I'll use it like this and I'll close. My dad's 85 years old. He probably travels 2,000 miles a year. I'm traveling over 40,000 miles a year. I'm paying a whole lot more on gasoline taxes than he is. It's a use fee, a use tax. The truckers, just so y'all know, the Trucking Association in Tennessee have already come to us and say they think it needs to be raised. They think diesel needs to be raised because they know how important it is. So that's the challenge. We're going to work hard the next year to come up with some solutions.
I'd like to add something along the same topic. Just came out, our Tennessee Department of Revenue came out with their November report, and for the year we are at an increase of 7.37%. And just for November compared to last year was over 9%. And one of the issues that you have to think about if you raise a gas tax is you're taking disposable income out of families, and we are a sales tax driven state. And so when you take away their disposable income, you may raise some gas tax on one side, but then you may be hurting on the sales tax on the other side because disposable income's not there. So raising a gas tax may not be the best alternative for us if we are a sales tax-driven state.
Thank you, Dr. Terry.
One last thing I wanted to ask. Well, first of all, this is just a quick comment. This group of commissioners that we have up here are very conservative, and so for anybody to even suggest that we want to raise taxes couldn't be more wrong. They couldn't be further from home base. You know, this was my first year to be able to be on the budget committee, and so we sat there meeting after meeting, department after department, line item after line item, to see where's the waste, where can we cut, where can we trim. We did it. We took it as far down as we could. So nobody wants to take more money away from anybody. I don't want to pay more money. None of us want to do it. The reality is, like you said, we have tough decisions to make. Sometimes they're not popular. I'm all for solutions. I'd rather hear solutions than, analogies. If you've got something specific to offer to the table, bring it. But as well as I do, as far as commissioners go, we have a very short list of the things that we can do to solve these problems. So that leads to my final question, which is, you alluded to the fact that you need us to apply pressure if we want change. Tell me what that looks like, and we'll make it happen. How do we get change? How do our constituents get change? What is it you need? Do you need resolutions? Do you need phone calls? Do you need emails? What is it you need to make things change?
Commissioner Allen, I think one thing that y'all did, I think y'all made some tough decisions on the insurance. I applaud you for that. That's tough. Not everybody voted for that. That's a tough decision. You've got to face those constituents and those families. I think something that y'all done earlier this year was just something as simple as that resolution that 21 of y'all voted for, just saying, hey, we want the state legislature to be aware of any state unfunded mandates. We're meeting I think for the first time, we're going to meet with our bilateral session with the federal delegation for the first time ever. We never even meet with them. You'd think, that's what I'm saying, government's broken. It is broken. It needs fixing, okay? We don't ever meet with them. We'll surely meet with them here pretty soon. In fact, if y'all have any questions that you want us to ask the federal delegation, pass them on to us and we'll do it. But even something as simple as reminding county commission or state legislators, look, if you're passing something down that's going to cost DeKalb County $4,000, that's going to impact them. One thing that the state did do that y'all probably didn't hear about is we extended the life of a school bus. You wouldn't think that would be much, but they said that saved, what was it, Chairman Tracy? $58 million it saved. Not one person called me, asked me about that. The school bus drivers, they don't have a lobbyist in Nashville. I've never met him, okay? They're too busy driving school buses for the kids. But that was a bill that saved $58 million. You didn't probably hear about it in the paper. It's not a sexy issue, but that's something I'm proud of that we supported that helped those school bus drivers too that are doing better now because the price of fuel's come down. But thank you for asking that.
I'll say back to that is, I would really like to hear specifically from you what it is you want us to do. Because just like passing the resolution on the unfunded mandates, in my mind, that's a symbolic gesture. I'm not interested in symbolic gestures. I want to roll up our sleeves. I want to get the job done. And I want to know what it is specifically you need from us to do. So if it's passing resolutions by 2/3, majority, if there are things like that you need us to do, I want an action plan when we leave here about what it is we can do to affect change.
Real quick, if you could, Chairman Tracy, going back to the previous commissioner, I want to mention, I think right before I got up here, but before I was up here back in 2002, the county commission doubled the impact fee. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, with and the home builders could correct us on this, it costs more to put a spade in the ground to build a house in Rutherford County than it does other counties. So we're placing, the fees are there. I mean, the fees have been doubled. You've got more and more downward pressure on these guys. I couldn't imagine being a home builder today. So I wanted to answer your question about, you mentioned the impact fees and so forth. Those things have been increased. It doubled a few years ago, and that's what I'm saying. How much is enough money? You're going to triple it, you're going to quadruple it. Resolutions, it may be symbolic, but you know what? It reminds people. It reminds them, hey, what can we do? Is there a better alternative to this? Let's study this issue. I'll go back on corrections. That's a big part of y'all's budget. It's a big part of the budget, and I don't know if the sheriff's here today or not, but that's a big part of the budget. Education is a big part of the budget. Study cost. Study those costs. You know, I was up here years ago and I said, what's the problem with people homeschooling children? People looked at me like, oh my gosh, you're talking about homeschooling. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with kids going to private school? It relieves the infrastructure needs. To me, we should encourage those things, not discourage them. So, and even on the corrections, it's hard to teach a man to fish. I mean, it's difficult. You've got some people that are battling drug and alcohol problems. Goes back to DUI arrests are up 92% the past 4 years. There's a real need. Let's study those areas. What can we do to help relieve that at the jail? I fought up here years ago. Let's just help people find a job. Put computers at the jail. Have a drug counselor. If 80% of your inmates, you've got a captive audience up there. They're not going anywhere. 80% are battling drugs and alcohol. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to say, let's get a counselor in here to talk to these guys. And I know the county's done a good job of improving the GED program and some of these other things.
Mr. Chairman.
But let's study these things.
Mike said real quick, and I've listened to him for the last 30 minutes, and I'm not so quick what that is about it, but I'd like more to the point answers. And I've got a
Ask me a to the point question. I'll give you a to the point answer,
Mike,
sir.
I'd answer you if it wouldn't take you 45 minutes to
Well,
answer it.
all right, let me ask you, how much discussion have you had about improving
Are you going to
a
let me
jail?
talk?
Okay.
You know what the jail library
Are
is?
you
A
gonna
bunch
let
of
me talk,
romance
Mike?
novels. How much discussion have you had about it, sir?
Okay, Representative Sparks, please. Okay, so that no one is left out, are there any more questions or comments from the commissioners?
Just one, if I could.
Please.
I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying 100%. I'm not agreeing with what some of our representatives are saying. Mike Sparks just made a comment that we've doubled impact fees, and I don't know where that came from. I really don't know where that came from. I don't ever remember doubling those impact fees. Mike, would you please allow me to comment? Please. What we were talking about, I think what Commissioner Allen was talking about and some of us others, is don't tie our hands. You said hard-working people, you know, they have to go back and forth to work. Hard-working people live here in Rutherford County, and we're raising their property taxes every year because we cannot pay for what's coming along. That's what we're asking. It's pretty simple. Give us some alternatives to raising property taxes. Doesn't mean you have to raise gas taxes, but give us some opportunities to discuss something besides property taxes. It's easy, in my mind, I'm never going to raise gas taxes when a county such as Rutherford could utilize that additional revenue versus raising property taxes, which is realistically the only thing that we have to pay for all of the things that are coming. Bill, you and Jim probably are real familiar with the rules of 7 and the old 401k plans. And, you know, if you had $10,000 to invest in 7 years, it's $20,000. That doesn't seem like a lot. But in 42 years, it's 320,000. That's the population explosion that's going to happen here. And it's not so much that we can't pay for it this year or next year, but how in the heck are those folks that are going to replace us and you going to pay for some of these things? And that's all we're asking. Don't pass mandates that tie our hands when we're looking for some relief. And that's pretty much all we're asking. And I appreciate the responses that you guys have given. And I appreciate the questions that some of the commissioners have asked too. So, Mike, I've listened to you for 30 minutes and I have no idea what you said other than impact fees, and I'd like for someone to tell me when those impact fees were raised.
Can I respond, Chairman?
Senator Ketron was a commissioner and introduced that legislation well over 20 years ago. And that's where it is. It's not changed. It's not changed one bit.
Commissioner, I wanted to answer Commissioner Allen's. She asked me, and I don't think you're ever going to answer, what y'all can do to help make change. And I think the number one thing we all can do, we're all elected officials, whether you're county commissioners, state reps, or state senators, we communicate to our citizens. I believe that if the citizens understand the issue and they understand the problem, they're willing to support us for a solution. But we have to do a really good job, and this is where y'all can help us communicate to them, whether it be on the road situation or what Mayor Burgess talked about on education, the challenges that you face. We're going to have to communicate to the citizens and let them know, whether we do it through town hall meetings, whether we do it through emails, whether we do it in a communication way, and we all have to do that. And I think the citizens, or I'm confident that the citizens elect us to come up with solutions if they trust us. And we've got to be honest with the citizens. The problem today in this world that we live in today, a lot of folks don't trust government. And when you say that, Commissioner Allen, y'all have tremendous challenges. I know that. Some of the things you're dealing with when you're in your high growth areas. So I think that would be one thing that we can all do together is communicate. And that's why I toured the state. That's why I brought out some of the issues I did. I'm willing to bring up the issue to let people know. When you tell them they're only paying $160 a year in gasoline taxes, they look at you like, there's no way that's all I'm paying. And so I think those are some of the things, and you relay that to the issues in those particular areas in Commissioner McAdoo's district, Commissioner Reed's district, your district. There's issues that are around that you need. So I think education to the citizens.
Any other questions, comments?
Let me respond, Chairman.
Respond to what?
About the mandates.
Sorry?
To Commissioner Phillips about mandates. My first bill that I introduced when I was a freshman legislator was an unfunded mandate. The bill was saving $30 million over a 10-year period. Nobody called me. Nobody called me. It was the bill where the sheriff, the mayor, property assessor, they all got about an $8,500 pay raise. That's an unfunded mandate. Not one person called me. The school bus legislation saved $58 million. Didn't get a phone call. There's an unfunded mandate for you right there. Nobody called me. You think that's an easy bill to run? I had 5 lobbyists. I didn't realize all these people have lobbyists. It shocked me. Didn't realize it. I'm just saying that if we know we have folks that are having real needs, you got a captive audience, your jail's a big portion of your infrastructure budget. Why not improve education? We're talking about, Commissioner Allen's talking about education. You've got a captive audience out there. There's an area to improve. That's a cost to the county. Let's study those things. There's not been one person at the General Assembly talked about unfunded mandates more than me. Ask the chairman. I'm vice chairman of local government. A lot of them get mad at me because I question them on these things. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just one quick comment. Harry Truman lied to all of us quite a few years ago when he said the buck stops here. I'm telling you, the buck stops here at the county commission level, at least where funding comes around. And to repeat what Commissioner Phillips has been saying, our hands are tied, and not just Commissioner Phillips. And we desperately do need help. Now, none of us want to go on and say, hey, I want to vote for a gas tax. Hey, I want to vote for this. Amen. None of us do. But I pay those taxes. My mother and father paid them. I figured it up one time. Dad would have had to live till he was around 350 years old to pay for what it costs to put his 4 kids through school from kindergarten through 12th grade. And we didn't have kindergarten when I was going. But our hands are tied, and I think this legislation, you know, the thing that's been said tonight that interests me most is, you know, freeing our hands a little bit more. You know, whether that means letting it go to a referendum, you know, that way I don't think you could say their voices are not being heard. You know, people know, you know, where their money is going to, you know, and gasoline is one of them. It's nice having an extra $20 because that's what I'm saving every time I fill up my tank, you know, so it hurts me to even think about raising gas taxes. But we have got to come up with some methods of funding these problems that we've got there. We don't have any choice, you know. If the prisoners are here, we got to pay for that. You know, if that electric bill is there, we got to pay for it or it goes off. So the buck stops here, but we need some help finding those bucks. Thank you.
Senators and representatives, we appreciate you coming out here this evening and participating in our discussion and answering our questions and just having a good conversation with us. And we wish you well as you start your new legislative session next month. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. As far as any other business, Commissioner Stevens?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion that we ask our state delegation to sponsor a bill to allow the Board of Zoning Appeals to be made up of either 5, 7, or 9 members.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Now, is this a private act type?
This would apply to the general law.
Private act.
Mr. Chairman, I chair the Planning Commission and have for a while. And I've attended a number of those BZA meetings. They have 5 members, and they're conducting business on an expanded level due to our new comprehensive plan that we adopted. Those guys are working really hard. If one is out, you've got 3 or 4 people making decisions that it should be more community input. This is an important decision that we make to give those people some help so that we can get more community input with decisions that affect the county as a whole. It's important that we do this.
Yes, Mayor.
Mr. Stevens, would you object to making this an optional 3, 5, 7, or 9? Because the current statute starts off with 3 and 5. There may be some counties that don't want to go to 5. Do you follow what I'm saying?
That would be fine.
We would still have our flexibility to go on up to 7 or 9 if we chose, but I think that might make it more.
Second is good with that.
Any other further discussion on this motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And, Mr. Chairman, I did have one more motion I would like to make, and that is a motion to ask our state legislators to sponsor and support a bill to amend Tennessee Code Annotated 674-601, and that would allow a county to assess up to a $25 increase in the user fee for the courts in all criminal and civil cases if the county commissioners adopt that by a 2/3 majority, and the funds could be used for jail construction, jail maintenance, courthouse construction, or courthouse maintenance.
Second.
Second.
Phillips, discussion?
And add workhouse to those terms if you would, because we're currently using what we already have in place for that very purpose. So we don't want to be sure it's available for all purposes, because we have debt at the juvenile detention center and the workhouse.
Wouldn't this mostly equate, Commissioner Stevens, to a user fee, similar to what some of the legislators were talking about earlier today?
Oh, it absolutely is. If you're a defendant in a civil case, if you're a criminal in a case, or a defendant in a criminal case, if you're filing a probate case, if you're filing a detainer warrant, a divorce case, anybody that files a case or is involved in a lawsuit is going to, when they file the case, is going to be paying the $25 increase if the state would let us do that. And all of those fees could be used to help pay for the new judicial center. That would be in lieu of raising property taxes. So the people who are actually using the courthouse would ideally be the ones who are helping us to pay for it.
So what's the fee right now?
$25.
This would increase it to
$25.
50?
So we'd be giving the counties an option to increase that $25 up to $50 if they so elected. 67-4-6015 is the section code.
The funds that we get from the $25 fee now can only be used for the construction cost or maintenance cost. They can't be used for anything else. So this $25 proposed increase would be on every new case from a certain point forward, and that money could also be used to help with the construction and maintenance costs.
Further discussion?
I've got a question or two. I understand the user fee, and I don't have a problem with that if, say, I want to bring a civil case against some person, and I go and I ask to bring this suit. I can understand, and I can fully support raising that for those individuals that want to do that. However, somebody that's had a lawsuit brought against them, would they also face this?
It's only when the case is filed, and then in the criminal cases, the defendant would be responsible for that as part of their court cost.
That's in effect already, right?
Yes, they already pay the $25 as part of the court cost.
And I've spoke to some of the judges in the past about the defendants in that, and many cases, they're indigent, and, you know, of course, we've got a lawsuit covering some of this coming up. I'm kind of iffy on where that money's going to come from if these people are indigent. What's going to happen in that case, if you'll explain that?
Someone's indigent, the court can waive the fees, can they not, Mayor?
That's an option that the actual judges make those decisions. They have to, the defendants have to determine a request. A public defender, they have to ask the judge to declare them indigent so they can not have to pay these fees. So they can be waived, but only the judge can manage that request.
Any further discussion? Is this going to, this doesn't go to budget, just to full commission? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
One more thing, Mr. Chairman, I would like to apologize to our viewers tonight. The discourse that we had with some of our state legislators was somewhat unprofessional and I thought very tacky, and that is not our normal course of business here. We have a very professional group of people, and we keep our discussions civil even if we disagree. And I just wanted to apologize on behalf of the committee that I was embarrassed at our dialogue, and I hope that in the future that we can improve that and act professionally in everything that we do.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, this meeting stands adjourned.